So I am going to show you how you can create a paper maquette for your slab project. The first thing I did is I started off with a quick sketch of what it was I wanted to make. I included the dimensions in the sketch, so I'm making a slab heart form, and I have given it 5 inches tall for the very top of the heart to the very base, 5 inches wide, and then 4 inches in depth. Once I did that, I thought about the pieces that I'm going to need. So I have a front and a back, and both of those need to be hearts, so I've got to make 2 hearts that are the same size. And then I have everywhere where there's like a little corner, that is probably going to be where 2 sides meet. So I have 2 strips of paper. I have one here and one here. Now you could do some like really fancy geometry and figure out exactly how long these are by breaking up the shape into like circles and triangles and finding the circumference of this, the length of this side. You know, obviously there's a way to do that. However, it's not really totally necessary. I'm going to show you a way that's faster. So once I had that and I planned that out, I started off with my first heart. So I knew I wanted it to be 5 inches wide. So I made a quick measurement I folded a piece of paper in half. I made a quick measurement from the middle of that paper halfway into 5, which is 2 1/2. And then I also made another measurement for 5 inches tall. I didn't start at the very bottom of the page for whatever reason, but you could start from the bottom. And then I drew the heart that I wanted and cut it out. And since the paper was folded in half, I got a nice symmetrical heart, all right, just like you did in elementary school. Now, this is where you might think, okay, so how do I measure these sides? Now, if you don't have measuring tape, which would be a great way to measure the sides, then all you need to do is cut a thin strip of paper, right? And I don't have any specific measurement on this piece of paper. I just used a regular piece of paper and cut it to a thin strip. And then what I can do is take this thin strip of paper, line it up with the corner, wrap it around the heart, making sure that it's lining up. Some shapes are a little easier. This one just keeps popping up. Let me flip it over. There we go. Flatten it out a bit. And I can literally just move it around the edge of the heart until I get all the way down to this corner here. Now once I'm at this corner, if I keep this in place, right, I can draw a little mark right where it meets the corner. And that right there is my measurements. So that is how long one side is. Okay. So once I have that, I'm going to go ahead and measure how long that side is. And it looks like it is a little bit under 8 1/2. I'm going to see if 8 1/2 works. It could be that my measurement is a little bit off, and 8 1/2 is rounding up. So if it is a little bit off, then I can cut some paper off. Right? I think it's a little bit better to, you know, err on the side of rounding up. So on my piece of paper, it just so happens that this is an 8 1/2 by 11 sheet of paper, so that it's already the right length. So what I'm going to do, and that was totally by accident by the way, what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure 4 inches from the side. Now remember, if you want a straight line, you have to measure twice. So I'm going to measure another straight line here. And And my ruler goes to 0 here, so I made sure to make the mark at the end of the ruler. Line up those 2 little dashes that I just made for measuring 4 inches, and go ahead and draw a line. Now I'm going to need to do this again, so I'm going to just go ahead and measure it while I'm here. 4 inches, do another dash so that I can line them up and get a perfectly straight line. If you only do 1 dash and try to draw a line, you have to eyeball your straight line, and that is never a good idea. So it's always a good idea to look at, measure twice, and then line up your ruler so that the line that you create is nice and straight. So I'm going to go ahead and just start off with cutting this one side. Now, try to cut as straight as you can. I also need to do the other side of the heart, so I'm going to make sure to do that. So I've got one side here, do the other side of the heart here, and I'm going to fold this in half rather than remeasuring and redrawing. I'm just going to trace this side. In hindsight, it might have been a good idea to kind of try to do these all at the same time, but you live and learn. Try to also go as near the edge of the paper as you can. Don't do it directly in the center of the paper if you can avoid it. Now, clay does flex, unlike paper, so if you are slightly off with your measurements, the clay can be forgiving. However, you want to be as close as possible to the correct measurements, because if you're not very close to those measurements, then it can be really challenging to line everything up. So I'm going to start off by putting some tape on, making sure the tape is not folded, lining up my 2 pieces. Sometimes 2 it's better to just do it this way. Lay it flat, line it up, wrap it around. It's challenging to tape together a curved piece, so just try your best. You might need more than 1 piece of tape. Sometimes 2 is better than rather doing the long way, so do the short way. We're just using this as a template, so if it's not totally perfect when it's put together, that's fine, because we are going to be taking it apart again. Sure it's a nice straight line. So I'm going to cut off. And remember, I knew that it was a little bit off, so I'm going to cut off about 1/8 of an inch, because I believe that's how far was off before. Measure it. And I know this measurement too, because I just measured it. I know I can repeat this on the other side. And, oh yeah, that's pretty perfect now. So I'm going to go ahead and put one more piece of tape on here. Stretch it around. Oh yeah, that's a nice fit there. So once that is in place, all I need to do is replicate that, and I'm going to be taping this side too, and you'll see I'll get a good idea of what these are going to look like, what it's going to look like when it's totally finished. So I have one more piece that I need to cut. I know that this is 1/8 of an inch too long, so I'll go ahead and measure that. And once I have that cut out and measured, I'm going to assemble it. And once it's all assembled, then I'll know exactly what my piece is going to look like once it's made out of clay. I can make adjustments too, so if I'm like, oh, I really don't like how small the heart is compared to the sides, you know, maybe I can make the heart larger and change the sides a little bit. So maquettes are great because, you know, paper really isn't too expensive comparatively to many other supplies that you can use. And then in addition to that, you don't have to roll it out. It's already ready to go. The measurement is the only time-consuming thing about paper. And it's really great that you can just quickly measure and cut. And it reacts in a very similar way to slabs too. So now that I've got this other piece, I can attach this other piece here and do the same exact thing as before. Let's do it this way. Line it up. And a heart is a relatively difficult shape to do. It's so much easier to do things like squares, sorry, not squares, the cubes, because it's made up of squares, rectangular prisms. You can even do triangular prisms or pyramids. Square pyramids are great. They're so easy to make. So, you know, you don't have to try to go and do something really complicated. Those will look just as nice as luminaries. And, you know, sometimes it's better to put more effort into the actual design of the cutout sections of the luminary than the actual shape of the container itself where the light is going to go. So I can just keep going with this. Everything is fitting exactly how it should. I will put the other side on. After I'm done, I'm going to label all of the pieces. Especially for something that has a lot of parts, I like to label those so that I can keep track of the parts. So that's 1, that's 2, this will be 3, and this will be 4. You can also label what part is up and down, where the parts connect if you want, depending on how complicated your shape is. And then you're going to take a picture of it for the assignment, and then you're actually going to disassemble it, so cut all the tape off, and then you're going to keep those pieces because we're going to use them to trace for our next part. So hopefully this helps you while you're working, and I look forward to seeing your forms. Thanks for watching.